Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome back to Hanging With. I'm GW Pomichter. Thanks for logging on and tuning in. If you haven't already, go on down and hit subscribe for us. Just click the little red button, subscribe, come back over and over again, see who we're hanging with. We are here tonight hanging with Derek Vasconi, an author and the publisher at Sakura Publishing, the writer of the Japanese horror novel Kai. Welcome to the show, Derek. Thanks for hanging with us, man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll tell you what, we had talked a little off camera about some of your travels. We're going to get to that in a minute, but tell us a little bit about Kai and some of your other more recent work. What are you working on?
Sure. So I took about 5 years to write Kai, and I just finished up last year, did my editing, and released it on January 6th. This is the book cover, if you guys can see it. And actually, this is the book. Okay. And Kai is, it's in a nutshell, about two girls and their mysterious connection to each other. One is a girl from Hiroshima who's very young. She loses something very important to her, and she wants to destroy the world as a result. And then on the other side of the world, there's an adopted Korean girl who is a counselor in Chicago, and she is kind of lost in the universe and doesn't know what she wants. And my book is about that connection and the horrific reality of what that connection is. So that's Kai.
Wow.
In keeping with that idea, I like to write horror. That's my favorite genre. So currently I'm actually working, I think, on what could be called the modern day Game of Thrones. There's about 80 characters, principal characters. There's a couple hundred other characters, but mainly principal 80 that I develop. And it's about the end of the world as dealing with the Pangu mythology. And that's all I'll say about that because it's so complicated. I don't even want to get into it.
Oh, my Lord. Wow, that sounds amazing. How far into that process are you?
Well, it's going to be 3 books. It's going to be trilogies. The first book's probably a couple thousand pages, which is crazy to say. But I'm about 30 chapters in, and it's going very well. Very well.
Wow, that is fantastic. How are readers responding to Kai?
Well, I think very good. Only, I guess I can use as an example the awards I've won for it. So far in 2016, I've won the National Indie Excellence Award for Best Horror Book. I've won the National Indie Reader Discovery Award for Best Horror Book, and I was a finalist in the Eric Hoffer Award for Commercial Fiction. So I believe that is some indication, but overall, the reader response has been tremendous. I've definitely, in terms of sales, I've done very well. But also, I've just got a lot of great feedback about it. I've had people really become absorbed in the book, and that makes me happy.
Well, I think they're afraid. One of your characters wants to destroy the world, so you know they have to say nice things.
Sure.
Yeah. No. So you're an indie author then?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And so tell us. We have a lot of other indie authors that we've interviewed on the show, and a lot that watch the show. What did you find to be one of your biggest or most daunting challenges as you started to publish in the indie world?
That's a good question. I think I have to maybe back up and say that about 8 years ago, I became a publisher myself of indie books. I created a press called Sakura Publishing. That actually was a vanity press to begin with because, to be quite honest, I didn't even know what a vanity press was at the time. Since then, I've definitely learned exactly about, maybe the negative connotations associated with vanity presses. So I became a traditional press and decided to really understand the indie world of publication. And therein lied the most difficult challenge, is the fact that I know how incredibly hard it is to become noticed in the indie world if you're not writing about topics that are popular, such as, in this day and age, vampire zombies or 50 Shades of Stupid. So, so
coming soon
right.
to a bookstore online. For sure. It is. We myself personally entered the world of indie publishing a few years ago now, and the education that I've got is irreplaceable. It's more than I learned in college. It's more than I've learned anywhere else. It's an amazing industry to be a part of today because the paradigm in literature, in arts and entertainment in general, is shifting. The internet and the availability of print on demand and small press publishing like your own is there, and it's changing the way arts and entertainment are brought to the masses. And it's an exciting thing to be a part of, but there's so much to learn.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot. Not to interrupt, I'm sorry. I was gonna say,
No,
like,
please.
because you brought up a really great point there.
It's your interview. You interrupt.
Thank you. Um, I, I felt like, over the 8 years, I put out about 30 different books. I sold about 75,000 books with my company, which I was really proud of. I know that's just a little
Absolutely.
drop in the bucket for major publishers, but during the course of doing all those sales, I learned how the publishing industry works, the certain biases that are in place because of the old guard way of thinking with major publishers, which you said is definitely starting to get chipped away at through the advent of things like, Amazon becoming the biggest bookseller in the world online, and you don't even need to be with a publisher to put a book out on the Kindle and make amazing sales. So that's also one of the reasons why I decided to self-publish. Initially, I did try to contact literary agents. My book was accepted by two indie presses, but because I know the publishing industry, I realized I wasn't getting the best deal for myself, and I
Hmm.
started to think, well, I know how to do this myself. Why not just put it out? And there's nothing wrong with being a self-published author. There's a great tradition of self-published authors out there, so I'll join them. And
Oh,
it
without a
was
doubt.
it proved to be a great decision, and I've kind of used what I've learned as a publisher to help propel my book, and I'm still continuing to propel my book. It's a never-ending journey, and that's the one thing that has kind of definitely shifted from the past understanding of what publishing was with authors. Like, back in the 70s, if like Stephen King got published, his publisher did a lot of the lion's share of the work of promotion and marketing, and that's just how it was. Today, it's a whole different paradigm shift, as you mentioned. The author's expected to do the lion's share of the work, even with small indie presses to bigger.
Even the top
Yes,
five publishers out there still to this day, they now have shifted so that they
yes.
want their authors to do more and more of the marketing, more and more of the legwork, and absorb a little of that cost. It's no longer the 20th floor is all about marketing your book. Now it's you have to be about marketing your book. So you're right. Indie is growing. Small press companies like yours are a major part of that shift
Mm.
because you're helping those indies. And because a lot of, like you said, a lot of the connotations of indie publishing is when you go to retailers, trying to get your book retailed is very difficult.
Mm.
And small publishers are helping to retail indie books for the first time. And thank you so much for what you're doing in that vein. We do the same thing here through our own communication company.
Oh, awesome.
But thank you so much. And you've also you're bringing in. We talked earlier off camera about your recent trip to Japan
Yes.
and your visits there. And you recently, if I understand your bio correctly, you just launched an app to help bring Japanese literature and some of Japanese stories into across the ocean and to the masses here. The EMOBO app. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. That was actually a project that happened a few years back, but it has recently gained exposure here, so I'm happy you brought that up. Emobo deals with something called Keitai Shosetsu, which is the idea of the Japanese cell phone novel. And what that
Okay,
basically
one
is,
moment.
oh, sure, please.
Robert Pomichter, if you're out there right now, please subtitle this webisode for me. Okay, son? I need your help. He speaks languages that I do not understand. So go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Please continue.
Right on. Well, basically, in Japan, there's this huge phenomenon. It's died down in recent years, but for the past decade or so, I'd say, you would see a lot of people reading cell phones on their or I'm sorry, novels on their cell phones, where they would get chapters sent to their cell phones as the author wrote them, and it was this huge thing. But there's nothing over in America that did that on the cell phone, so I created that. And basically, I hooked up with a company called Text Novel. They're actually textnovel.com, and they are sort of the online version of the English-speaking cell phone or English-writing cell phone companies, and I merged them with my app, and basically now you can go anywhere in the world and read books in English that are cell phone novels through my app.
So I'm writing it,
Mhm.
and I put it out in a chapter or a section at a time for readers as I'm writing.
Yes, that's correct. That doesn't have to be complete. And when your subscribers, when you're done with the chapter, they get your chapters. And that's kind of the fun part about it is if you have like 50 cell phone novels on your EMOBO app, you might wake up one morning and have 50 new chapters to read. And it's just awesome because when you're on the train going to work and it takes 30 minutes and you're bored, you just flip open EMOBO, you start reading, and there you go. It's perfect.
So you've basically taken creative writing into the blogging world. So I write it, you read it, and then I keep going, and you read it a chapter at a time.
Right.
And as many authors as are participating.
Yes, that's correct. And
That's amazing.
in Asia, there's over, I think, 1 billion cell phone novels in existence. In America, because of my app and what Text Novel's done, we have quite a hefty amount. I'd say probably a good 10 to 20,000, and it grows every day. I've recently sold the app to a big company because they wanted to take it to a much larger height that I possibly could have ever done myself.
That's amazing, man. That is fantastic. Congratulations on that. Now, writers are readers. So what are you currently reading? What's on your I see your bookshelf behind you. What's on your nightstand tonight? What are you reading?
Oh, geez. Well, actually, I've been doing a lot of research for my book that I'm writing that I just mentioned, my modern day Game of Thrones. So my reading has been a lot of comprised of background for my characters. I'm what I call like a method writer, where I believe in order to write correctly, it's like a method actor. I have to live, breathe, eat, see. I have to know everything about every detail of my characters. I'm almost like Tolkien in that way. Like I create things that even if you never hear or see it in my book, they have to exist for my mind to be able to work properly. Like there's backstories beyond backstories. So to answer your question, like right now I'm reading stuff about Ninpo, which is like a martial arts form, because one of my side characters is like he's into that whole world of martial arts. I don't know anything about martial arts other than I enjoy watching movies with it, but obviously movies is only a modicum of the truth. So I decided to really become an expert on that. So right now I have like 5 books on Ninpo that I'm reading that are just blowing my mind. It's completely.
Wow. Well, now you said you're writing a modern day Game of Thrones. Are you a Game of Thrones fan?
Die Hard, but I have not seen the season, so don't say anything, please.
Okay. All right. No spoilers for Derek about this season's Game of Thrones. Tell you what, since we have you on Game of Thrones, so we're going to let people know a little bit about your personality. Most horrible death scene so far in what you've seen on Game of Thrones?
Probably for me, the Red Wedding. That shocked me, and I don't think there's a lot of people that would probably disagree. That was probably that was ridiculous. It took me completely by surprise. You kill off 3, 2 major characters, 1 minor, and then just a bunch of other. I mean, it's just blew me away. Plus, they killed one of the direwolves. Come on, that's just.
Yeah, no, that does. I think that actually brought more tears than the wedding scene itself. Everybody kind of knew it was coming.
Sure.
Book readers have been warning us for a while that it was coming, but to see that direwolf really kind of made it almost real, and
Really?
It really did. So, Jon Snow, alive or dead? What do you think, man? If you haven't seen this season yet, Jon Snow, alive or dead? You're a writer. Come on, the writer in you. What's it tell you?
The writer in me would say that he's alive, but not in the way we think. Like my guess is he is like that one guy that the Hound fought, like way back in early seasons. He killed the dude, he came back, he was resurrected. I think either Jon Snow he has that kind of blood in him, or Melisandre resurrected him and did something crazy to make that happen. But maybe he's not fully alive. That's what the writer in me would say, but who knows? I can't wait. The only reason why I wait, though, is I have this annual tradition ever since the first season where I wait 8 episodes. Once the 8th episode is done, I binge watch all night, and then I watch the last 2 live.
We're huge bingers here.
Yeah.
I believe, obviously, we run the show here on a YouTube channel, so I do believe that the arts and entertainment paradigm is shifting, and the internet is becoming more and more important. I think that YouTube and other content depositories are becoming the new medium for broadcasting, and I do believe that the instant gratification that we all seek makes us bingers. Netflix and Hulu, and these are major places where we're binging entertainment today.
Yeah, Netflix is probably the #1 reason why I haven't written like 6 novels by now, and I hate them for it.
It is Netflix. It's your fault. If we're not writing, it's your fault, Netflix. If we're binging. So all right, well, fantastic. Now you recently returned from a visit to Japan.
Yes.
Where you were doing some research on your next books. I say series. There's a series coming. So, now you traveled back and forth to Japan quite a bit, yeah?
Yeah, I lived there for 5 years on and off. I actually was going to do the teaching thing, and I decided not to when I got there, just because it didn't fit me. I think I'm not a 9 to 5 person. So actually in Japan it's more like 5:30 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night when it comes to work. But I would say you know, between my travels and stuff, I went there to do research this last time. That was the first time I went, with the exception of when I wrote Kai. When I wrote Kai, I lived in Hiroshima for a very long time in order to really understand the background of my characters and stuff. Because how would I know how to write about a young Japanese girl? I'm not one, and I don't know any young Japanese girls because that'd be creepy. So I had to really immerse myself in the culture there. I met a Japanese woman who lived in Hiroshima her whole life. She took me in. I learned so much that every single word in my book Kai is faithful to that experience that I learned. I made sure, because I didn't want to do a disservice, because again, I'm a method writer. So in that same spirit, this last trip, I went through to do research, and actually, I did mostly research for 2 other books that I want to write after my trilogy, but I did do some research for my trilogy I'm writing currently. But the one, I have to tell you this, it's a very interesting story. Are you familiar with Om Shinrikyo? They're the cult that bombed the Tokyo subways in 1995.
Only by, you know, media reporting, background, stuff like that. As a journalist, you kind of study some of the background, but we never get out exactly enough information. So please.
Okay. So one of the things that I did was set up a series of interviews with various people. So again, so I can immerse myself in their life, understand them. So when I write about like those type of people, I know what I'm talking about. So I don't seem like a stupid white guy just trying to, you know, borrow Japanese culture to make me look cool. I hate that kind of thinking. So I really went there to understand. And with Om Shinrikyo, one of my characters in my books, her father was in Om Shinrikyo, and she's trying to deal with the fact that her father was part of something so horrible. So what I did was I actually managed to set up an interview with Om Shinrikyo's #2 general, so to speak, that is still
Wow.
he's not in jail. He's the only major leader in Ulm that didn't get either the death penalty or life in prison. He's extremely intelligent. I don't want to say his name because I told him I wouldn't, but I think if you did a simple YouTube search and put in Ulm's #2 guy, you'd find out exactly what I'm talking about. Anyways, I got to meet him, but it was really crazy because I had to go through security. They have police outside of his apartment 24/7. They still, 20 years later, don't trust this guy, and I can understand why. I went into his place. It was like, you know, it was incense everywhere. It smelled like a Buddhist monastery. It was completely barren. I sat down thinking that, you know, I had a translator with me because my Japanese is good, but it's not that good. And he actually spoke perfect English, and we talked for 2 hours. And this guy was so charismatic that by the end of the conversation, I was like, yeah, he's not too bad. I like him. Oh, wait a minute. He was responsible for killing like 11 people and injuring 4,000 people in the bombings. Wait a minute. I shouldn't like this guy. But that's the appeal of people like him. And so he blew my mind how intelligent he was, and he was being mostly defensive. He's very smart. He got around all my questions, but for a moment I got him because I started asking him about his parents, and he kind of broke down and told me, oh, well, you know, my dad cheated on my mom when I was young, and I still haven't got back my relationship with my father all these years later. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. Then you met this guy named Shoko Asahara who started Om, and he became your father, didn't he? And, you know, basically that's what happened with this extremely intelligent guy. How can this guy who's so smart, smarter than me by a long shot, how can he be that brainwashed? And then it hit me, oh, because he still has a heart, even though we don't think it.
It is. And, you know, as a writer, when you're researching, and especially then later when you're writing, we talk about this a lot on the show with our authors, with our artists. An artist's job is to tell the truth. If the facts are important if you're a journalist, the truth is what you're trying to get to, and that truth about the human condition. And no matter how smart a person is, this gentleman in particular, no matter how smart a person is, that we're all vulnerable to the influences in our life, to our needs.
Yeah.
And if you need a strong paternal figure or a maternal figure, if you need that guidance in your life, then psychologically you'll seek that out in positive ways or in horrific ways, as it can turn out. So
that's what was so interesting, was that he for a moment showed me his human side, and I realized, oh, you're just like everyone else. You have a mom and dad that you wish loved you, and that was an unexpected twist I didn't think I would get in the interview. And as a result, I'm able to write, I think, a much deeper and richer story with the girl in my book whose father is an Om, because now I have a direct correlation between a father and her, and why she ends up doing something horrific. And so I think when I do research like this always happens, and especially when I'm in Japan and I get people to open up, which is very hard for Japanese people to do when you're not inside their little social circle. I felt like I really accomplished something on this trip, and I actually want to go back and do more interviews with people to do the
That's
same thing.
amazing. That is fantastic. It really is. Now, you're a big horror fan
Yes.
as well. So let the internet know, who's your favorite horror character, horror bad guy? Who's your favorite horror character?
Actually, I think it would probably be Kayako from The Grudge, or it'd be Juon, Takashi Shimizu. There's an American version made some years ago with Sarah Michelle Gellar as the star, which I actually thought was very good. I don't care what anyone says. Takashi Shimizu directed it, and I think it was faithful to his original Juon. So Kayako is definitely probably my favorite. I actually have her tattooed on me. So
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You know, the horror genre, like I said, we tell the truth. It's about a human truth. It's about things that are inside of us. But we use some really interesting characters in horror to do that. So, in all of the horror, now like you mentioned earlier, everybody knows about werewolves. Everybody knows about vampires. Those are kind of the go-to monsters. Do you have a favorite horror monster out there? What's the best monster to tell those stories in your opinion?
a monster, huh?
Yeah, what's the one that kind of reaches into your head and says, "Hey, maybe there's a monster whose story is not being told, kind of a Beowulf out there somewhere." What do you got?
Can it be a human monster? Because
Sure.
sometimes I find that humans are far more monstrous than the imaginary ones.
Absolutely.
I would say in my book, Kai, there is a character who is kind of a monster, a burned figure, if you will, that my readers will meet halfway through the book and will wish they hadn't. But but aside from that character, who I felt was really good for being a monster, so to speak, I think the girl who was in the book Audition, who actually was in the movie Audition, the book was written by a very awesome author who I love named Ryu Murakami. And the movie was made by Takashi Miike, who's known for his huge amount of shock value he puts into his films. But Audition, the girl, she's a monster. But the interesting thing about her is it's almost you can sympathize with her because of all the abuse she went through as a kid, why she does what she does at the end of the movie. Which, by the way, the movie's interesting. It's like 2 hours long, an hour and a half. You're thinking you're watching some silly drama. And then the last half hour is the most horrific thing you're ever going to see in your life. And you're just like, did I just see what I just saw? And the horrific part, which makes her a monster, is the fact she can't get past all the psychological damage. And I think people that can't get past that damage in their brain from whatever happened in their life, they're the real monsters. And those are the most interesting kind of monsters to me. They're the ones I always write about, think about, watch movies about.
Well, these are the everyday monsters. We all have that light and that dark in us somewhere, and the monster is the one whose dark side, whose inner monster is out of control.
Yes.
You can't check it, and when you can't check it, you're right. Human beings can be some of the most monstrous, more so than you can actually imagine when you put it on the paper. So, what is the project that you're working on, the series coming up? What's that called? Do you have a working title for that yet?
No, unfortunately I don't. Actually, with my process, I usually title things right when I'm done with the book. I know that's weird, but like I almost never have a title for something until the very end.
I'm with you, brother. I have to usually wait, and I find my title somewhere hidden on page 300.
Right?
There's a turn of phrase or something where I was particularly fortunate that day, and there's my title. So
yeah, the title that kind of came to me one night, although I'm not sure if it fits, but I may use it still, is called Like Skins Were Wires. But I don't know how it fits into the overall epic idea, because like when you think of like a title like Game of Thrones, that perfectly summarizes exactly what the whole thing is about. I don't have a perfect summary title, but that title I have, which I just told you, it sounds to me more like a metal band name, but there is a reason behind it that is part of the book, and that's why I kind of thought of it. But I'm not sure if it's a big enough reason to encompass the vastness of this story.
The whole epic, yeah, no.
Epic.
Hey, you know what? Thank you so much, Derek, for hanging with us here tonight. We're going to have to wrap it up here a little bit. So before we do, I want to go ahead and send a special shout out to our friends at Something Unique Magazine. Books, Chocolate, and Wine, the Florida Book News, Authors for Authors, our great friends over at Wordfire Press, the Florida Writers Association, so many of the folks that are out there right now sharing these webisodes with the World Wide Web and sharing these authors and these writers all over the internet. I'm G.W. Pomichter. We've been hanging with Derek Vasconi, the author and the publisher at Sakura Publishing, the writer responsible for the Japanese horror novel, soon to be Japanese horror classic Kai.
Thank you.
We're going to actually check that one out. I can't wait to read that. And is it in English? Can I read it in English?
Yes.
Okay, good, because otherwise I've got this whole Skype thing. I've got my son is the only one I know speaks Japanese. So, but yeah, so we've been hanging with Derek Vasconi, the author of Kai. Remember, everybody, subscribe, log on, tune in, and see who we're hanging with next.